All right. Well, welcome everybody, the PhD Synergy podcast. And we have a very special guest for you today. Paulette Burke is a certified primal health coach. She's also got a specialization in gut health. And she's going to talk to us about that today and everything that goes on here, how it affects everything else. She's got an extensive career in sales, in gas and oil. She's also got a lot of experience in teaching and training and development in that. And she is now happily retired. And she's going to talk about maybe some of the de-stresses that come from that too. So let's bring her on, Paulette Burke. Hello, how are you?
I'm doing well. Hello, Neil.
Oh, good. It is good to see you. And I see you've got the appropriate attire.
Of course. Of course.
Now, you hail from what state?
Oh, I don't know where to declare a home. Born in Alabama, lived in Texas, lived in California, lived in Missouri, lived in Pennsylvania, and back in Texas now.
The great state of Texas.
Yep.
Goodness. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about who you are. We know where you're from, and a little bit of your background, and then we'll get into some coaching specific things. So, just fill in some of the gaps where I stammered.
It's okay. Oh, let me give you the Cliff Notes version of my life. I had several health issues as a child, particularly I went through 4 surgeries between the ages of 4 and 6, and that actually set the stage for my lifelong interest in staying healthy and staying the heck away from doctors as much as possible. And I am not kidding when I say that. Mm-hmm. So I've always been interested in health and got a bachelor's in biology with a chemistry minor. Well, almost a chemistry minor. That I just wasn't going to take that last organic chemistry class. Just no way. Went to work for oil and gas, Exxon, now ExxonMobil, sales, technical support. Went over to Exxon Chemical, quality assurance, technical support. Then I got downsized, and I went and taught at a small Christian university by the name of Laterna, which is based up more close to Tyler, Texas, in the Northeast Texas. Did that for 5 years, went back to work in oil and gas, but this time in training for Chevron, and had a good time because the job was actually rotating to Nigeria. So I did what's called 28/28s. 28 days in Nigeria, technically 28 days at home, but really 26 days at home. You traveled on your own time. And that was highly educational from a try to stay healthy point of view. And I am proud to say I'm one of the few people that did not have to take antibiotics in Nigeria. So came back here, did more training, and when I was downsized a second time, I talked with my financial advisor and found out I could retire. So I retired.
Do you recommend that?
Oh, do I recommend retirement? Yeah, you can. And I'm smiling because at the time I was downsized, it was actually a relief. The year before, the last year I worked, but right before that, my mom passed away. And she was in assisted living. I was her legal guardian, and she had vascular dementia. And that could be a whole nother topic related to the proper human diet at some other point in time. But, and I'm sure many people listening to this might relate, you can only imagine the stress of being your mom's legal guardian or anyone's legal guardian. And they don't really process things well anymore. And then trying to work on top of that from Pennsylvania, coming back and trying to settle in and work that last year before Chevron did a whole reorganization and I was left standing, which was the term for, we don't have a place for you. And then I began the process of de-stressing and what did I want to do.
Yeah, you've got options then.
I had options. And the one thing I do want to say for anyone listening to this, if you're under major stress, don't think you get over it fast. Even when the stressor is taken away, if it's been chronic stress or a high intensity stress for any length of time, it took me 3 years to totally de-stress. And that's what I really want to communicate to folks. Stress is not a one and done thing. You got to give yourself time, grace, forgiveness for the bad days, appreciate the good days, all of that. And it took 3 years until one day I woke up and went, ooh, I feel really good and relaxed. So that's my big takeaway. And then, can I say God in this?
Sure.
Okay. I have to give you some context. My last year in undergraduate, I contemplated being a doctor, and I wrote off to 3 medical schools and got their curriculum. And all 3 of those had nothing to do in them about helping people be healthy. 2 of them had 1 semester of pharmacology and 1 semester of nutrition. The 3rd one had a half a semester of pharmacology and a half a semester of nutrition. And I looked at that, and I'm not saying the material was not needed, but I looked at that and saw that being a doctor wouldn't help me achieve my goal of helping people be healthy. Now, fast forward through a whole career, several years of retirement, life happening, and then I found Dr. Berry and had the opportunity to become a coach. And I was thinking about this about a month ago. You know, life happens in mysterious ways. My whole goal of what I wanted to do was help people be healthy. And guess what I get to do now?
Yep.
Help people find their sweet spot and get healthy. And who says God doesn't have a plan?
See, that's the difference between playing chess and playing checkers. And yeah, this is your story. So you can say whatever you want. It's on my YouTube channel. And if it gets shared and somewhere else, that's fine. If people don't like it, I don't care. It's still going to be on my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, that is another thing I wanted to share. Just because you haven't achieved what you want to achieve right now doesn't mean there's not a plan for you to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Plan might be next year, next decade. How about 4 decades?
Could be. And it could be. And I know I had this discussion with my wife when she went to nursing school. It was, well, I think I need to go and do this. I'm feeling, a nudge, a pull to go do that. Okay. Well, you're going to go so far down that road, and you don't have to know every step. You just have to know the next step.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, the next step. Because at any point along the way, we'll call it providence to make people won't get mad. Okay, God may say, I want you to go this far so you can meet this person, and then take you in a different direction entirely.
Yeah.
To go so far down that road, to go down that road. You can't figure it out until you look back and in hindsight, you say,
Yep.
oh, there's that thin thread. How did I miss that? But nonetheless. Yeah. So how did you get turned on to Dr. Berry, a proper human diet, and the nutritional side of good health?
Okay. August 2017, I got my blood work back. And I know my body. My blood glucose was a tad high. And when I say a tad, it was 101. But I know my body. That was not normal. And I also have to say, on my mom's side of the family is a history of vascular dementia. Mm-hmm. And atherosclerosis and strokes. So I saw that and went, uh-oh. And I dived into my research mode. Mm-hmm. And let me tell you, I looked at a lot of YouTubes and I did a lot of Googling. And Dr. Berry was one of the folks that came up. He was just starting keto at that time.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And I love his common sense approach.
Mm-hmm.
Listened to him, followed him when he went carnivore as he developed. And the thing that attracted me the most is that he is talking about a spectrum of how we should eat as beings, not a this is the only way. And oh, by the way, take this bottle of whatever. And I've stuck with him ever since. And like I said, I had the opportunity to join y'all as a coach, and I jumped in with both feet.
Oh yeah, into the deep end.
Yes, I did. This was not
swim.
The yes,
So you hit on something that is so important. You yourself, you're not a carnivore. You told me before we went on, you like you some nuts and berries, and that's because you found your spot on that spectrum from low carb to keto, ketovore, carnivore, lion, everywhere in there. It's a spectrum. It's not a carnivore only club. It's not a paleo club. It's a spectrum.
Yeah.
And we tell our folks, everyone's nutritional needs are going to be different, not just nutrition, but your health needs, your activity, your rest. And it's going to be as unique as your fingerprint. And, even if I have a fingerprint, you have a fingerprint, there's going to be some similarities between them, but mine is unique to me. And so I got to figure out all those little nuances. And that's where the whole concept, the N of one comes into play. And, how did you zero in? How long did it take you to find your sweet spot on the spectrum?
Let's see. It was about 4 or 5 months, because when I first started listening, there was no one in there actually talking about how many carbs you should eat or you shouldn't eat. So I'm here listening around, trying to at least get a starting point, Listen to some YouTube by Dr. Paulette, and he made the comment that he thought 80 net carbs was okay. So I started out with 80 net carbs, and I got a tracker. And I'm like, I never get to 80 net carbs. I'm down at like 50 or 60 net carbs. And a couple of months passed, and was it Dr. Barrett? I can't remember which YouTube. It might have been Dr. Westman that was talking about total carbs, not net carbs. So I switched over to total carbs, and that was okay. And being a data person, I bought a Keto Mojo, and I started measuring. And then I figured out through testing that if I stayed under 50 total carbs, I generally would get into ketosis. And then I found out I was really fat adapted, because suddenly most of the ketones disappeared.
Right. Now stop right there. Explain what that means, because some people will, like from the old Atkins days, they'll get the urine strips, and then after a while they seem to stop working magically, or the Keto Mojo is like, my ketones just like the bottom fell out. There's a reason for that. Explain what that reasoning is.
Okay. We all talk about being fat adapted. That means your body is using the fat to create the ketones. It's using fat to create the energy in the form of ketones. If your body is creating ketones, it is using the ketones. So the ketones are getting taken out of your bloodstream, and they're not there because your heart's using them, your stomach's using them, your muscles are using them. And any glucose in the form of glycogen that you need, your liver's going to make, because there are some cells in your brain and in your eyes that do need glucose. And your liver is perfectly good at making that. So yeah, one day you might not have any ketones, or you might start registering low.
Well, and it's not that they're not there anymore. It's just a matter of they're not registering because you become so efficient. You're using them. You're making just as much as you're going to need to use them, which is why as you're becoming fat adapted, it's going to spike up, because all of a sudden there's all these extra ketone bodies in your blood. But then as it levels off and you kind of zero in, yeah, you just become efficient.
Yeah. And at that point, I didn't really understand that. Back early 2018, I didn't really understand that. So when I quit registering, I just registered low. I was out Googling again. Why did the ketones disappear? What am I doing wrong? I didn't change anything how I ate. Yeah, I did the newbie things. And once I found my answer, it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. And I continued following Dr. Berry. There's some other people I listen to. Sometimes I listen to somebody just because of the topic they're discussing. Then the opportunity came up to join as a coach, get my certification. And now I've come full circle in my mind because I actually get to help people.
That's a very cool story. And I've heard bits and pieces of it, but to hear it straight from you and to hear the full circle, that's a good thing. Now, you're a primal health coach. You also went another step and you got certified as a gut health specialist.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that, maybe some of the new things and some of what's on the horizon with that, and why is it so important? That's a lot to unpack, so go with it.
Okay, you're going to hear me spill a lot of beans, although I don't eat beans anymore.
I knew what you meant.
I know. More and more research is done, and many of you have probably at least heard how important our digestive systems are to our total health. And it's estimated that 60 to 70% of our immune health is in our gut. And there is what's called the gut-brain axis, where our gut talks biochemically to our brain. And that is a two-way street. The expression, a knot in your stomach, where you really feel unsure and you start getting anxious, etc. That's your gut talking to your brain.
Literally
talking to your brain. The importance, and I am by no means the expert of experts, but the importance of what we're discovering is how to stay healthy, or how to help ourselves stay as healthy as possible. And there's very little research right now, but one of the things I've been trying to read on is gut health and aging. And I'm finding things that are sort of like a chicken and an egg. Is that our microbiome diversity gets bad, so we start aging faster? Or is it we start, our microbiomes get bad because we are aging faster?
Now, let's back up for just a sec or pause. Some people might, they've heard these terms. What is a microbiome in general? And then what is a gut microbiome? And what is healthy versus unhealthy?
Is any area of ecological significance in terms of your physical body. Like you have an oral microbiome, your mouth, what's in the bacteria, fungi, and whatever else is roaming around your mouth. You have an esophageal microbiome where there's a transition. You have a stomach microbiome, a duodenum, a jejunum, a colon microbiome, and they're all
skin.
Skin microbiome. For ladies, a vaginal microbiome, a urinary tract microbiome. You might have heard that, oh, your urine is sterile. No, you've got bacteria. And any lady who's had a UTI can go, okay, I understand that.
Yep.
Gets imbalanced. So all these areas or microbiomes that have their own specific bacterial signature. And some of the things they're discovering, like the L. reuteri, actually affects your skin. Other bacteria that affect babies positively. Like there's a bacteria called L. infantis, and it translocates. It'll get into mother's breast milk. So when a lactating woman is feeding her baby, she has a microbiome in her breast milk, in what her breasts are producing for the baby. And L. infantis is very important. And babies that do not get that, that are also born by cesarean section, or do not have the same microbiome as babies delivered vaginally. And there is some research that actually hinders the development of the child. And okay, microbiome. I think I'll spring my little surprise that most people don't know. Oh yes, I'm doing further research, and this was not in the certification course, and I was actually, frankly, surprised, did not know this. In men and women, your entire digestive tract, stomach all the way down to the rectum, they have estrogen and progesterone receptors. And estrogen and progesterone receptors are involved in your gut motility. I'm not sure, haven't come across any specific articles on research in men, but in women, it'll affect women that are still cycling. If you notice that during your cycle, sometimes your gut slows down or it speeds up, it's how your hormones change. It gets affected. And if you've gone through menopause, if you notice a change there, it's your hormones, possibly. It's also, could be your overall gut health, but it could be hormones. And that was a new learning for me. I'm passing it along.
And you'll keep us all updated because you're like you said earlier, you're a data gal. You like the data.
I like the data. There's the one thing to talk about the gut microbiome, and many of you probably know this. The standard American diet, also known as SAD, has contributed mightily to various gut health issues, along with big food and big pharma. From the standpoint of some of the drugs you take, definitely the antibiotics, and I'm not knocking antibiotics because when you need them, you need them.
Oh yeah.
But they will contribute to gut dysbiosis. The additives in your food will contribute to gut dysbiosis, particularly for those of you that might still be eating grains that are sprayed with glyphosate. Glyphosate was originally patented as an antibiotic. And the reason it's not sold as an antibiotic, they discovered that it actually killed the good bacteria in the gut and allowed the bad bacteria to proliferate. But do you think all that glyphosate just magically disappears after it's sprayed on all the crops?
No.
And the other thing I do want to say, for those of you that eat store-bought bread, not the bakery bread that's made fresh and thrown out, I'm talking the store-bought bread, and you read the ingredients and they have preservatives in them, those preservatives kill the good bacteria in your gut. Yeah, they preserve all right.
Yeah.
They don't do your gut any good.
So what can someone do? Let's say that they're on a standard American diet. What are some of the things they can do to improve their gut health from that baseline? They're standard American, standard Western diet. And maybe they have gut issues, maybe they don't, but what can they do to just up their level a little bit from where they're at?
Well, first thing I would say, get rid of all the grains. Get rid of the seed oils because the omega-6, omega-3 ratios are not good and they're highly inflammatory. Get rid of all the added sugars. The added sugars feed the bad bacteria and the fungi in your gut.
So it's not just a thing that these, keto and carnivore people are just say, just, oh, you
No,
need to cut sugar out and it's all in your head and it's a mental addiction. There's an actual
there's an actual,
physiological need to get rid of
yeah,
that because it's feeding the bad bacteria.
feeding not just the bad bacteria, but the fungus, the fungi. We all have fungi in our gut. The trick is everything stays in balance. And there's actually a good fungi that helps, but everything stays in balance. If you feed too much of the wrong things, it gets out of whack. And then you add antibiotics on top of that. Then you add some of the other additives in the food on top of that. And then it really gets out of whack. So if you got rid of those three things in and of itself, and literally stop walking down the middle of the grocery stores, except for the food aisle. I mean, the coffee aisle.
Well, yeah.
Except for the coffee aisle. And you can walk down the canned meat aisle, but really read the ingredients.
Read the label.
And if it's a grocery store that has pet food and you have a pet, you can go down the pet food aisle. Some of the food's not all that good, but depending on your budget, you get what you can get.
So cut out grains, seed oils, and added sugars.
And added sugars.
That's like step one to getting a better gut health.
Then step two is really get serious about reading food labels in terms of what are the additives, what are the preservatives that are put into the food. Carrageenan, which is natural, but it is not good for you. It's sort of like saying, oh, I can eat 100 apricot pits. Well, you might eat 100 apricot pits, but it could kill you. So read the labels would be a second step. Learn the 60 plus names for fake sugars.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I'll tell you a story. A friend of mine that I have gotten her eating low carb, she's dropped 50 pounds, needed a whole new wardrobe and got back into her old shoes.
Mm-hmm.
But a couple of months ago, she said, I've only been concentrating on protein and carbs, but there are ingredients in here that I can't even pronounce. So if you can't pronounce the ingredients, there's a good chance you might not want to be eating it.
Maybe it was Coach Kevin had said, if you don't know what an ingredient is, your body doesn't either.
I would second that. Now, the third thing I would say is also give yourself some grace. If you're somewhere like on a road trip or whatever, make the best choices you can make. And by that, I'll tell you my story. I was on a road trip. I got hungry, filled up with gas, went through the convenience store, what I could eat. Package size nuts that actually were cooked in peanut oil, not the best choice. And read through 4 types of beef jerky to find the one that sugar was the lowest, the farthest down on the list. Better bad choices. You do the best you can do.
Like Dr. Barry says, the least bad.
The least bad. So give yourself a little grace because the journey is a journey. And there are days where you just got to do the best you can do. Mm-hmm. Now, if none of those things totally clear up your issues, the next step is to, I would say, do an elimination diet first, to take the possibly offending foods that might be triggering some digestive upset out. 90 days is best, but at least 30 days. And then reintroduce one food at a time for at least 4 days. You eat that same food for 4 days and see how you feel. And if you do this before you start doing it, write down how you're feeling.
Right.
Write it down, how you're feeling, how your skin looks, what your energy level is, how your eyesight is, how your sleep is, the whole thing. Because as you start adding the foods back, it'll be easy to say, oh, my stomach is really upset. But are there other things going on? Are there other aches and pains? Did you start having breakouts? Did your energy level tank? Your sleep got bad? Whatever it is.
Did your joints start hurting all of a sudden?
Yeah. And as you do that, you can find out foods that you're fine with, foods that maybe you want to stay away from. Found out can't eat spinach. Can't eat spinach. I can eat almonds in very controlled amounts, but I can't eat spinach.
Now you let's say you reintroduce something and the first item is perfectly fine. Then you move on to adding a second, and it's not quite so good. After 4 days or so, do you give like a washout period? How long do you need to give before you say, okay, it's time to try the next item?
I would probably give at least 5 days to be safe. Some people say 3 days. I would say at least 5 days, particularly if you had a significant reaction in terms of, let's say, joint pain or gut issues. 5 days would definitely be, it should definitely wash out. The aches and pains should go away. The gut should settle down. Maybe it might happen in 3 days. I just tend to err on the more conservative side.
Just to make sure you're back to that baseline of
yes.
of nothing or just the known good foods. Yeah. Okay. Well, and just as a reminder, we're talking with Paulette Burke, certified primal health coach and gut expert on gut health. And we're talking about a proper human diet spectrum and how you can maybe, if you're coming from a standard American diet, some steps you can take to improve that. Well, let's go a step further. Let's say that you are, we're preaching to the converted and you're on a proper human diet. You found your way, maybe you're keto, maybe you're ketovore, somewhere in between, maybe you're paleo, but you're on that spectrum of a proper human diet. But maybe you still got some gut issues, and I'm going to include in there bloating, diarrhea, constipation,
Gas.
Gas. What are some other things you could call gut distress?
Churning, where you can feel your intestines just contracting, or I just call it churning. They're just not happy. And I'm not talking the occasional, I'm just moving the food through. I'm talking right. Churning. The next step, I am an advocate of fermentation. Whether you're fermenting veggies, if you're eating veggies, or you're making your own yogurt. I'm a real advocate of that because you get the highest good bacteria count in homemade yogurt. When you do the 36-hour yogurt that Dr. William Davis talks about, you will get the highest bacterial count possible. If you are dairy intolerant, you can make yogurt out of coconut milk. There are added steps involved, and you use some different types of food for the bacteria. I've never made the coconut milk. I've stuck with regular milk. If you are dairy intolerant and you don't want to make the coconut milk, you can buy probiotics. But I have to warn you, most of them do not have enough colony forming units to really make a meaningful impact. There are a few brands that are actually geared toward women that they formulated it for 100 billion colony forming units. And that's about 40% of what you can get if you make yogurt. And those are the ones that have at least a decent chance of making a difference. But when you're getting probiotic capsules that have 5 billion or 10 billion or 20 billion, the probability of a meaningful impact is much less.
Okay, so kind of like, if that soft drink costs $1, but you only put 75 cents in, you're not going to get the results that you want.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And so I'm a big advocate of making homemade, I call it industrial strength yogurt. Because you can make it out of a single species, or you can make yogurts out of multi-strain species. Now you'll know what goes into what's going into the multi-strain, but you really don't know the proportions in the final yogurt. But you'll have a multi-strain at some proportions in the final yogurt. The taste of each yogurt is going to be different. I've put berries in my yogurt. You can put some true lemon or true lime or true grapefruit that does not have any added sugar in. Let me think, what else? You can put some vanilla flavoring in, like a vanilla extract, or if you're trying to up your protein intake and you use a protein powder, flavored or unflavored, you can put a little bit of that in there. The goal is to give your gut a whole lot of beneficial bacteria, because if you've got gut dysbiosis, which is like a level 1 gut imbalance, or if you've got SIBO, which is a 10 fire engine gut imbalance.
I was going to bring up SIBO. Yep, I'm glad you did.
If you've got SIFO, which is small intestinal fungal overgrowth, that's another 10 fire engine imbalance. And that will impact not just the process of digestion, it will impact how well you absorb nutrients. And at some point in time, it will impact your whole body's nutrition, because I can pretty much assure you, you will have leaky gut. And at that point, all the tight junctions, you've got 3 layers of protection in your intestines. You've got the mucosal layer, you've got the tight junctions, and then you've got the biochemical, it's IL, and I don't remember the number. It's one of the ILs.
Gotcha.
The biochemical. And if your mucosal layer fails, and it very well could, and if your tight junctions loosen up, the biochemical can't hold a whole influx. Once the bad bacteria get through, they will be distributed throughout your body. And that will affect your skin. That could affect your heart. That will affect your metabolism. That will affect your mood. And there's even some thought, because they have found fungus in brain autopsies, it can get to your brain. So you get bad bacteria or fungus in your brain, you'll have mental health problems. And the other plug I want to make is for your oral microbiome. You get an imbalance in that, and there's some particular bacteria. It'll go into your bloodstream. It can go to your heart and damage your heart. It can go to your colon, and there is some research out. It's not causation. It's just they have found this bacteria that is an oral bacteria. They have found it in the colon of people that have had their colons removed or part of their colon removed for colon cancer. No, there's not sufficient research enough yet to say causation or just association. But they found the bacteria there. And that, to me, is worrisome. So,
well, I see a lot of people think, we're talking about gut health, and they think they're just thinking poop.
Yep.
That's all they think. But digestion starts in the mouth and goes all the way down. And we're talking not just about poop and getting waste out. We're talking about like you just mentioned, the nutrition, the nutrients get absorbed through all of this process. And there's so many nuanced things, and you're by far more of an expert on it than I am. But I know leaky gut is when those junctions open up, and that's just like, if you ever seen like ants or termites or something, all they need is a little crack in the foundation, and they can enter into the house and go wherever. And that's what leaky gut does is, like you
Correct.
said, as soon as it gets through, it's going to affect everything.
Yeah.
How can we prevent, or at least do our best in prevention, to not have things like leaky gut, SIBO, SIFO, and so on?
Let's go back to those first three. Get rid of the grains, get rid of the seed oils, get rid of the added sugars, eat whole foods. In other words, read the ingredient list. If you can't pronounce it, good chance you don't want to eat it.
Oh, and the other, the added to that is, if it's got, was it more than 5 ingredients?
More than
It's
5 ingredients.
it's not a food, it's a product. And
Correct.
real food isn't ingredients. Real, or what is it? Real food's not an ingredient. Oh, well, you know what I'm saying.
I do. That's the first thing. The second thing is an elimination diet, because here's one of the benefits of a truly elimination diet where you're really strict for 30 to 90 days. You're getting rid of all the added sugars, which are generally the preferred foods of the bad bacteria and the fungus, the various fungi. You do that long enough. Now, you might have what's called a die-off. If you really have an issue, you might feel rather miserable for several days. You might have some runny poop for several days. But your gut will rebalance. And for many people, just doing that is enough.
Mm-hmm.
They can get their gut to rebalance. But if you've been on a truly very sad diet, you've been on antibiotics, and your sad diet had a whole lot of additives that really aren't good for you, you might need to go to the extra steps of introducing fermented foods and some homemade yogurts into how you eat to get a high enough number of the good bacteria in to reseed your gut with the good bacteria, and let the good bacteria duke it out with the bad bacteria in your gut. And literally, there are folks I know, there's a period of time where they could swear duking out was going on.
Well, we get at that.
But I'm going to share a story here. A friend of mine that she was willing to try this when I started making yogurt. She expressed interest because she hasn't been able to lose weight. And trust me, I've known her for 20 plus years. Did all the standard things, couldn't lose a pound. I started making yogurt, not just for me, but for her too. I fed her a lot of yogurt, different kinds. In 3 months, she lost 14.5 pounds. She wasn't exercising. She wasn't doing anything differently. So for some people, gut dysbiosis also controls will you lose weight or not. Now, she also has some stress issues, but she was working on that. She was working on her sleep issues. But she still wasn't losing weight, but eating the yogurt. And she bought her own machine, which actually helps me out. And she's making yogurt. And she's continuing to lose more slowly, because until this stressor is an elder care stressor, and that's not going to go away anytime soon. The best she can do is try to manage it.
Sure.
So her weight loss has slowed down. But the fact that she lost 14.5 pounds with no extra exercise, not changing how she ate or anything else in 3 months, shows that her gut was really messed up. And by daily, she told me there were days she was eating 2 containers of the yogurt I made by 12 ounces. Daily having the yogurt actually helped correct her gut. But she did discover that if she cheated, her gut let her know. Like Christmas, and this wasn't so much her deliberate choice, but Christmas dinner with in-laws, her sister-in-law likes to put sugar on everything.
Uh-huh.
The best she could do was eat the glazed ham. I mean,
less bad.
Less bad, better bad choices. She said we're talking. She said, well, I had the glazed ham, and I had a little bit of the string beans, but I started eating them, and I could taste the sugar. Like I said, there are days you just do the best you can do.
And then tomorrow morning, you reset.
Yeah, but she did say her digestive system let her know it wasn't happy.
Mm-hmm.
So for those listening that might be having issues with not just the bloating, but wanting to lose weight, and oh, by the way, while her weight came off all over, most of it was in her core, which I would say the visceral fat.
Yep.
And that is telling, because that's the worst kind of fat to have.
Exactly.
So anybody listening and having weight loss issues, and I'm talking to the folks that have been trying to lose weight for years, not the folks that are newbies on the journey of 3 months or 6 months. I'm talking people that for years, and you've done all the standard things and nothing has worked. You might want to think about your gut.
Right. Well, and add to that, I know it's emerging research, but just the added element of the hormonal imbalance and the hormones that go through there, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and the absorption issue through all that adds a whole new layer to why that may have made such a difference for her, and her ability to lose weight by changing nothing except adding that.
Yeah.
So that's very telling.
You replenish the good bacteria. You help heal your mucosal layer. You help heal and tighten up those tight junctions. And eventually, that heals your whole body. Which, at least for me, that's what I want.
Yeah.
Neil has heard me say this before. I have a long time goal. I want to be a feisty 100-year-old. And I have one aunt that did hit 100, so I think I at least have a chance.
Oh yeah, and you're so into genealogy. I'm sure you can find more down through your family line that have done it.
Oh, the genealogy part, I like finding the scandals.
Oh,
that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, that's not for here. I was gonna. So you mentioned, especially as you start to do an elimination diet, or as you just start to add in maybe some fermented foods, as your gut is adjusting. I don't know, for me, when I first came, I started, very dirty keto and went from there. But yeah, a lot of newbies will realize, my gut's doing weird things, and it's simply that adaptation from, bad mucosal layer, loose junctions, and bad absorption, and all that. And as it begins to correct itself, it's got to rewire itself, and it's going to take some time. So there could be some fluctuations on that Bristol scale.
Yes. Well, think of it this way. When you improve how you eat, you're starving the bad bacteria and you're starving the fungi. They do not go gently into the good night.
They do not. They do not. But once you get a handle on it and you learn how to eat, your body adjusts. It's just like, we talked about the ketones earlier. At first, there's a dramatic difference. The ketones in your blood go way up. But as you get adapted to it, your body figures out what it's doing. And then those you get efficient with it. Same thing with your gut. At first, there might be a dramatic change, but your body figures itself out. And then guess what? It doesn't last forever. Yeah. It doesn't last. And your mileage may vary depending on how long you were on a poor diet, and just how much healing has to happen, just to bring you from the negative up to ground zero and then into the positive. Some people have a lot more ground to cover just to come to zero.
Yeah.
So it'll vary. But
and And the big thing is, even after doing the elimination diet, if you have a lot of healing to do, you have to be patient with yourself. Your body heals at its own rate, and in its infinite wisdom, it'll figure out what it needs to handle first. It's not going to handle what you think it needs to handle. It's going to handle what it prioritizes for your health and longevity. Not the extra 20 pounds, 30 pounds, 100 pounds. That's not the first thing on your body's agenda.
No, it's that's good, but I got to work on this over here first. And so what are some things people can check regularly? I know a colleague of ours, Bronson Dant, he says, periodically I will check things. I'll check I'll measure things. And when he says I measure things, that's everything from weight, macros, feeding windows. But he says, even things like a quick glance into the mirror to your reflection to see. He said that's all tracking. And he said, and I like to do it every 6 months or so. I'll just say for 2 weeks, not forever, for 2 weeks, I'm going to track everything, chart it all out, and just see what are some things specific with gut health that people could track if they start to feel a little something. Is it all, you said mood, you said
mood, how does your skin look? How's your
skin.
energy level? How are your joints? Some people will feel it in your joints. And how is your gut? Do you have a lot more gas? Do you have churning? Now, if you've got gas and churning, also look at what you ate, because, if you decide to go eat a ton of beans, you might have this. But if your gut is churning and you haven't changed anything, there might be a gut microbiome issue. For the ladies, there might also be a hormonal issue, particularly if you're still cycling. If your estrogen is really high, things might move a little faster. If your progesterone is really high, they might be a little bit slower. So, but really, it's how does your gut feel? How does your skin look? What's your energy level like? How do your joints feel? And how's your sleep? You might not know it, but gut issues can get reflected in your sleep. So how's your sleep? And how's your mood? Like if you are honest with yourself, and if you're normally a pretty even-keeled person, and there are no known stressors, you don't have a sudden deadline at work, you don't have elder care issues, you haven't had a 20-pound ball drop on your foot. How's your mood? How's the stress going? Because if you're feeling stressed and there's no identifiable reason for it, that could be your gut.
That second brain that we all have.
Second brain. And I would recommend handle how you eat first, because for some people, that's all it takes. Improve how you eat. If that does not totally resolve the problem, that's when you go on and you look at elimination. You look at probiotics in the form of fermented foods or industrial strength homemade yogurt. And if that doesn't totally resolve it, then there are some things you can add. Like if you've got a fungal overgrowth, there are some natural things you can add, or there's some things you can talk to your doctor about.
That was my next question, was at what point do you say, I've tried a lot of things. When is it time to see a doctor? Because I'm sure it happens.
The issue becomes, particularly with C. diff and major SIBO or SIFO. If you've got massive diarrhea and you've cleaned the diet up, it's not totally clearing up, you've got a burning stomach and you think it's acid, it might not be acid, it might be Helicobacter pylori, more commonly known as H. pylori. It could be SIBO, it could be SIFO. At that point, you really need a doctor that knows how to handle it, because many doctors will just hand you a prescription for more antibiotics, which just make the matter worse.
Mm-hmm.
There are 2 herbal antibiotics that actually Johns Hopkins, I think it was Johns Hopkins research, that are as effective as the pharmaceutical antibiotic. And they are sold on Amazon. They're not inexpensive, but if you want to go a natural route and try that, that would work. I can, not prescribing, but research. There are some other herbal formulations that I actually have used in the early days for Candida, and that really knocks it back. The other thing for doctors, there are pharmaceutical antifungals that way back, this was way before, it was when I was basically getting on bioidentical hormones. Part of the whole thing was getting rid of the Candida and cleaning up your diet, which I would say at that point, they were advocating more of a paleo type thing.
Mm-hmm.
But they had me on a couple of antifungals that I didn't realize until I took them that, yeah, I had an issue, because I've been on antibiotics my whole life off and on, between my early childhood and, hey, you get a tooth pulled, they put you on antibiotics.
Right.
And there's a digestive tract antifungal, which is great. But there is a very strong antifungal, which actually is systemic, and you can only be on it for 1 week. And they had me on it for 1 week, and it was like ants coming out of my skin.
Ooh.
That it took care, but that just told me the fungi had left my digestive tract, and it was throughout my body. And it's a very weird feeling when you feel like ants are crawling out of your legs. I can tell you that. So yeah, if you've got the issue, a doctor can prescribe those 2 things, and I can attest they do work.
But that's the nuclear option. Once you have literally eliminated everything else, you've cleaned up your diet, you've done it long enough, you've tried the fermented foods and all those, and none of those have worked, elimination diets. And when it comes time to see a doctor, then you do that. But we want to keep it simple. We want to keep it as simple as we can.
Knowing what I know now, well, this was in 2008. I probably would have not done that. If I was starting from that point, I would have gone through the process that I've been talking about now. I took it because it was part of the process then of basically getting me cleaned up, and it worked. I mean, it was good, but that's not the route I would take, knowing what I know now. But it is, if you get to the nuclear option, that would work.
Right. And that's when you work with your provider.
Yeah. You work with your provider, because the nuclear option on the antifungals, it's not an over-the-counter thing.
Right. And I guess we should have led this whole topic off with, we're health coaches. We're not here to diagnose. We're not here to do any of that. We're just 2 people talking shop. We're not your coach. We're not your provider. We're not anything. This is not medical advice.
We're not treating. I'm perfectly willing to talk about what I have gone through in my life, but that is not a prescription for anybody else.
No, this is for entertainment use and educational and entertainment use only.
Yes. But I can say this: the younger you are when you take care of your gut, the better your health will be. That if you have a goal like me of hitting 100 and being a feisty 100-year-old, sooner you do it, the better off you'll be. because there'll be less damage. Unless you've been eating a really horrible diet, there'll be less damage for your body to repair.
Right. Well, I've had fun. Have you had fun?
I've had a lot of fun.
This is great. Now, I know that you're certainly you're a coach on the PhD community, and you've got your own coaching space within there. Are there any other places people can look you up, or is it you pretty much
Nope.
there?
I'm pretty much there. Since
Okay.
I'm single, I do not do the social media thing from a safety perspective.
Gotcha. Well, hey, PhD community, and we'll have a link in the notes.
Yeah.
Come find us. There's PhD Synergy. There's Paulette's. Is it your coaching corner? Is that what
Yeah,
you
that's
call it?
Paulette's Coaching Corner.
And you've got recipes on there for like the yogurt.
Oh, the yogurt, yes.
Yeah.
I have a Zoom I did live. I've got a question in there for those listening to this and they're trying to figure out who do they go to order their own labs. I just put up a list of websites in the United States. Unfortunately, I know nothing about what's available in other countries. And there's a glossary of acronyms in there too for those that come to the PhD website. So, what do these initials stand for? What do they mean by N=1?
What does PhD stand for? It's proper human diet.
Yeah.
Acronyms abound.
I give you a definition. It's in there too. And all the coaches, we're all doing this because we want to help everybody be healthy and everybody to thrive. I focus a bit more on gut health and aging. Neil focuses on movement, and I'm trying to be good and doing something every day.
That's okay. And I will say this, as you gave a little teaser, little spoiler, little announcement, we're going to be adding a mindfulness aspect because what we want to do is take the whole person, your nutrition, your activity and exercise, your sleep and rest, your mental, behavioral, cognitive. We want to add a mindfulness practice to that because they all feed off of each other.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be, we'll have a challenge coming up too.
It's not just one aspect. You can't just fix one thing. You got the whole.
Yes. Well, Paulette, I have had so much fun with this, and we'll have to do this again. But just thank you.
I might tell you some actual bacterial strains that could have some specific benefits.
Ooh, that sounds like a blog post.
I could do that one. Yeah.
I think you should.
Okay.
But yeah, and just we'll keep an eye out for all things new and keep us updated on the research that you're looking into, because that is pretty fascinating and that could be a thing.
Yeah, I've had a few days where let's just say PubMed and I are close friends.
Like that. Well, fantastic. Well, again, Paulette Burke, thank you so much for coming on here. All right, guys. We will see you next time.
Take care.